Today we're jumping right into a really complex and, let's be honest, pretty charged topic. We're going to unpack an argument that tries to deconstruct a term you hear all the time in global politics: military rule. What is it? Where did it come from? And how is it used? Let's get into it.
So we're not going to ease into this. We're starting right at the heart of the matter, with the kinds of provocative questions that, according to our source material, really frame the entire debate, especially when it comes to a country like Egypt.
And this is it, the big one, the central, challenging question that gets asked over and over by opponents, both inside and outside the country. It's a heavy question, right? And it immediately sets this really high-stakes tone for the whole conversation.
And of course, that one big question just opens up a Pandora's box of other anxieties. It's never just about one person. It's about the entire system. How does power actually change hands? Who's even in the running to be next? And the one we're really digging into today, does the leader of the country have to come from the military?
Okay, now this is where the main argument of our source material really starts to unfold. The whole discussion pivots to the term itself, military rule, and makes a pretty bold claim that this phrase has a surprisingly modern and very political origin.
So think about that for a second. The crucial point being made here is that military rule isn't some timeless academic concept that's been around forever. The source argues it's actually a manufactured political tool, something that was created at a specific time for a very specific reason.
Let's follow the breadcrumbs here as laid out in the analysis. Before World War II, the argument goes, political science just didn't see things this way. You had religious rule or you had civil rule, and the military was just part of the civil state. But then the Cold War kicks off, and the source claims that U.S. intelligence, looking for new weapons in a war of ideas, got think tanks together to cook up new political concepts, and boom, out of those sessions, the term military rule was born.
So what was the point of inventing this term? Well, according to this analysis, it was designed to be a wedge, a tool you could use to turn a nation's own population against its leaders, not because of their policies or their performance, but simply because of their professional background. The whole idea was to stir up instability from the inside.
And here's where the source points out what it sees as a major contradiction. The whole idea of democracy is about inclusion, right? Letting every part of society participate. But the argument goes, this term, military rule, is used to demand the exclusion of an entire group of people from public life. It's a paradox sitting right at the heart of the debate.
So how does this term actually get applied in the real world?
Well, the analysis digs into that by looking at how the military rule label seems to be used very selectively, depending on who and where you're talking about. This slide just lays out the argument of a double standard perfectly. On the one hand, a leader from a certain country with a military past gets slapped with the military ruler label, which kind of implies the whole system is illegitimate. But on the other hand, a Western leader with a similar background is often praised as a war hero who became president. And the source throws out some big names to really make you think. Charles de Gaulle, a famous general, became president and led France through one of its strongest periods. Was that military rule? Dwight D. Eisenhower, a five-star general, was a two-term U.S. president. Was America under military rule? The source asks these questions to really challenge how consistently that label is ever applied.
And this isn't just about ancient history. The analysis points to something much more recent, like the 2017 Trump administration. As you can see, a pretty significant chunk of his cabinet appointees had military or security backgrounds. And yet, the source notes, you didn't really hear this huge international outcry that America had suddenly become a military government.
All right, so after looking at the West, the analysis swings the camera back around to Egypt. The goal here is to challenge the whole idea that having leaders with military experience is some new or strange thing for that country.
The argument here is that if you actually scroll back through thousands of years of Egyptian history, many of the nation's most famous, most foundational leaders were in fact military figures. From the pharaohs who first united the country, to legendary sultans like Saladin, to the guy who founded modern Egypt, Muhammad Ali. The source even points out that King Farouk, right before the 1952 revolution, was educated at a British military academy.
Okay, so if the term military rule is, as the source claims, a flawed political weapon, then what should we be using? How should we evaluate a government? Well, this is where the argument proposes a totally different, much more academic standard. Here it is, the strict academic definition of military rule that the analysis puts on the table. And it's not about what job someone had 10 years ago.
It's about a state where the leader and all the key players in government are currently serving active duty military officers. That's the key phrase, active duty. So this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we use that very precise academic definition, does Egypt's system of government, now or in the past, actually fit the description?
And the conclusion from the source is unequivocal, a clear no. By this standard, because leaders are not active duty officers when they take office, they are retired or resigned, the system just doesn't qualify as military rule. A person who leaves the military and enters civilian politics is, by this logic, a civilian, period.
So if we throw that label out, what's left? Well, the source argues for a totally different way of judging a leader. Don't look at the uniform they used to wear. Look at their political performance. Look at their wisdom, their strength in actually running the country, and the results they get.
And this brings us to the final and maybe the most important point of this whole analysis. It's a call to shift our focus away from just the individuals in power and towards something much bigger, the health and the strength of the nation itself.
It's a pretty simple idea, really. The argument is, let's stop obsessing over the personality or the resume of one ruler, and let's start asking the bigger questions. Are the institutions of the state strong? Are they stable? Can they actually withstand challenges and endure?
And this reframes the whole conflict, doesn't it? Is the real battle just about who gets to sit in the president's chair? Or is there a much deeper struggle going on over the very idea of the nation, whether it's going to remain a strong institutional state or become a playground for political experiments?
There's a powerful quote from the source material that really seems to sum up this whole perspective. It suggests that what really matters for a nation's survival is strong, effective leadership, and that real danger comes from weakness and illusion, no matter what background a leader comes from.
And so we're left with this final question to chew on. What's the real measure of a nation's health? Is it about the professional leader held years ago? Or is it about the nation's fundamental ability to endure, to remain stable, and to face whatever comes next? It's a thought that definitely reframes the entire debate.